Gas Center. Rob Hull with the state of Rhode Island, I believe, is around the corner. I appreciate your coming in today, sir. Thanks so much. I know you're a busy guy.
Oh, we're all busy.
Is that an understatement?
I think that's an understatement.
With July 5th, the sort of D-Day for the new DMV system approaching, you sent the release out last week. You let folks know where things are at right now. Talk with us a little bit between where we are today and July 5th. What remains to be done? What are the final steps? Is it training, testing? What are you going to be working on before the July 5th launch?
Well, good question. We have 20 days to go. So we watch the days as they roll off, as we've been doing for a year and a half. All those things. The good news is this, the technology piece, the 2.5 million lines of code, that's been written. That is functioning. We are testing it every single day, over and over and over. And that part actually gives me the least agita. Like, that is not the thing that worries me now. We have a great team on the ground. We have a great partnership. We've hired some outstanding leaders, kind of on contract mostly, to lead from the state side, and then our partner DXC has really been on the ground amazing, despite having had to wrangle with their parent company at times. So that's behind us, and we're in a good place. So the next 20 days will be making sure with kind of a military level of precision, we have every vertical issue discussed and covered, from training to employee engagement to testing to making sure the media push is loud enough that people know, don't come in July if you don't have a reservation, at least through July 18, and go online, use the AAAs, just putting all those ducks in a row, and then just practicing and practicing and practicing.
What do you have to say when you hear from folks that say, we're going to the DMVs and the lines are so long? And, do you think, is this a result of folks trying to, again, preempt the July 5th date? Is there a bigger volume now just by those folks saying, gosh, we've got to go now before this happens?
Great question. So one of the good things about the DMV is we have a lot of data. So we've been tracking it a long time. So we know the volumes of people that come to any of the 6 DMV locations, particularly Cranston, which is bigger by an order of magnitude. And so we know, for example, that these are big crowds for now.
Yes.
But it's 2 things. It's what you said, which is we're eating into future demand, which is a great thing. Right?
Yep.
So people are listening. They're listening to the media. They're listening to all the communications, and they're coming in now to get their work done. It's hard on the folks there. And we have some unbelievably hardworking, smart people there. That's the good news. The other thing that I can't emphasize enough is that to get everybody ready, to not make mistakes that other implementations across the country and even here have had, is we are training the heck out of our people, and it's tiring, but that means taking them off the line. So at some level, there are fewer people to process transactions, and that's the math that's hardest here, is your time at the counter in the DMV, sort of contrary to popular folklore, that's like 10 minutes, right? It's just, and multiply that times the number of people we have serving them, between 20 and 25 people, then it's not a lot of time you're spending and actually doing the transaction. It's the volume of people kind of in the building wanting to get it to that point in the line.
So talk to us maybe in layman's terms. I mean, we knew that the DMV needed this upgrade, but what was the old system? What was kind of not the best about it? Why did we need this new technology to be implemented, and everyone is moaning and groaning about it happening? Why couldn't the old model stayed in place?
Well, that's another good question, and an easy one. The truth is, it was written in something called COBOL. You can't find COBOL programmers anymore.
It's just old code.
It's old, ancient code. It's written in the Reagan era, which is sort of mildly entertaining for those of us in our 50s. It is but more importantly, there's no backup to it. It's very fragile, and it doesn't take a mouse. It's blinking screens without pull down menus, and while
is it green?
It's actually black and white, blinking black and white. It depends on your monitor, I guess. But we have reasonably new PCs and screens, but it doesn't matter. This stuff is written for PCs that were in place in the 1980s and 90s. So that's it. But it's actually there are 2 more things. One is online. So of the 250 odd transactions people come to the DMVs for, and you wouldn't believe the breadth of them. It's
250. Wow.
Right. It's not just your driver's
not
license.
renewal license.
Right, which is what most of us know. But title repairs, commercial driver's licenses, special vanity plates. I mean, the list is huge, and doesn't measure kind of going over, but only 20 of them are available online. And that's because this isn't a plug-and-play piece of software. The code has to be written every time you modify anything online. So the solution is getting people to go online, and to get better online functionality, you got to replace the base, and that's that. So one of the challenges for this, and the I think the governor had a ton of courage moving ahead, is that this isn't about the end customer today. It will be. This is about replacing an ancient system, like most of the state systems that have replaced. But I think the other piece of this is that it's not. It is really not Real ID compliant. That's a federal government program for security and driver's licenses. We can't even do that with this app. We have to be ready by 2020 with a new app, and so it's an imperative. We could beg for forgiveness and wait, but we might find Rhode Islanders not able to use their driver's licenses a year from now or 2 years from now at airports and federal locations.
So would you say is one of the ultimate goals to get less people into the DMVs and more online?
Absolutely, there's no doubt, and you know that from private industry, right? So banks, everyone else want to move your people out of the lobby and into online solutions. And it turns out that, and by the way, we have great people, and people always need to come in for some initial transactions like your first driver's license, because there's some critical credentials that need to be seen there, including facial, recognition and whatnot. That is the way to leverage people's time. So that, and right now, again, I'd encourage people to do that. Don't come in July if you can avoid it. You can make a reservation online, which will happen the week before we go live. So the last week of June, you'll be able to make reservations, and use AAA, because they've generously opened their doors for all non-members of the state.
So what would you say to folks? Again, the move is to get obviously more folks online, and the people who are really working with the system are the DMV folks and the folks at car dealerships and law enforcement officials. To the average end user, again, come September, come October, is it going to be, you don't see it when you go up to the counter, the person behind there is on the computer.
Right.
Is it, again, at that point, are you anticipating, I know you were watching the numbers very closely, you're anticipating lines at the beginning in the onsite, even when you're warning people to stay away.
For sure.
But as you said, you're keeping tabs. Do you think by the fall, by the winter, things will even be less than where they are right now?
So we've modeled this pretty closely, but human behavior is tough to predict, right? And when I say human behavior, we have 175 people across all 6 DMVs across the state. People have a variety of different speeds that they work at. One thing's for sure, the old system, while they know it cold, and they're really good on it, there's no pull down, as I said. There's no self-populating screens and fields like there's this new thing, and they like it. I mean, the employees, we engage with them a lot, and they are going through 6 days of training. If you're a frontline person dealing with it all the time, they do like it. It will take a while to get fast on it. It simply will, and because of things like Real ID and other security, there are more things to fill out now. With that said, in answer to your question, I would hope by September timeframe, sometime in the fall, we will be at least where we are now, typically in functionality, and the lines will be gone, other than kind of what a normal seasonal line might be, and we'll start working our way down, to a faster and faster pace, and then we can start rethinking about the flow in the DMVs. We haven't done that. This is not a business transformation. This is just a system replacement, and that's actually in our core, because an implementation this complex, you don't want to redesign the whole thing. And you want to just get the system working and then start to do things that make it a little faster, a little better, a little more favorable. So I would hope so. I would hope by the fall we're in a much, much better place. And I would hope that little by little after that, as we start rolling out more online functionality, you'll really see an improvement.
And I had the opportunity to talk with Paul Grimaldi. It was great to, again, spokesperson for DMV, to ask me a ton of questions about it. And one of the ones I asked was how much has been tested, how much has been beta tested. And he did mention there were a couple of municipalities that were still, they all checked out but 2. Where are we with the ones that are still working out the kinks?
So those interfaces, which is tech speak for the pipes between the different cities and towns, between all the agencies across the state, or really across the world, that need to interface with all of our information. There are 2 cities and towns that are left. I'd rather not sell them out. They're working hard to get it right. And by the way, even if those 2 out of the 68 interfaces aren't ready, we can do them manually, and it won't be a big deal. I mean, it would be better that everybody be automated to join the 21st century. But so I'm not going to rat out my fellow mayors, because they've been so good and supportive to me.
So you mentioned the manual component. That was my next question. If something were to go catastrophic, and not just the launch a month or 2 or 3 months from now, Is there a plan B if something were to happen and pieces of the system go down? Is manual sort of the backup plan?
So we don't have a manual backup plan, but we do have a backup plan. So within the week, if in the first week we find a catastrophic failure, we can revert to the old legacy system.
Okay.
Okay.
So the legacy system's literally still sitting there on the shelf.
Right.
You can plug back in like
still.
okay.
We'd have to stop everything. We'd probably have to close for a day or two, go boot it, as they say, stand it back up,
Yeah.
as technologists say.
But that's the last option.
That's the last option. The beauty of this is that we've tested this under triple volume over and over and over again. We've tested our ri.gov interfaces at huge spikes in volume. I don't foresee that, but again, you never know. So we do have a backup plan. There is no big manual solution. It's frankly the volume of transactions or registrations, you just couldn't do it. It's just mathematically staggering.
Yes.
So.
And again, I'm speaking with Paul. He did mention other states have, in New Hampshire, had planned to launch, and they actually at launch date said, "Hey, we still have more stuff to work out." Are you anticipating that could potentially happen, or at this point, does it look like July 5th?
So we're ready for that. We will not go live. It stops. It stops with me. And Bud Craddock, and my two top technologists, one from DXC and the other Chris Cohen, who's the state's top tech guy on this, who we've brought in from the outside. If we decide over the long weekend that it's just not right, we're just not doing it. There's no way. But in answer to your question, I'm cautiously optimistic. As we go through all the testing and everything that we've been going through over and over, it's more the operational stuff that we have to work the kinks out, in my view, not the tech. Because we've been testing it. We've been writing this code for almost a decade. I mean, the biggest spike in this in the last year is we've trying to get it right and test it. But I'm more concerned that we have the ops plan down, that we know how to triage crises as they come. We can take you over to the side and make sure we take care of it. One more thing, the governor, and obviously we'll meet with her the end of that last week and kind of walk her through it, and then she'll if she green lights us, then it'll be in our hands over the weekend. If we see something different, we'll blow the whistle. If not, we'll move ahead.
So that's like before the final weekend is when you bring the governor in and say, here we are. Okay.
And she's smart. If she says this doesn't feel safe enough, we're not doing this. We have hired at her request about 2 months ago a third-party independent verification agent, and they've scrubbed through all the code and they're going through all the processes, and they'll have a readout for us. They're giving us incremental ones, but that'll be our final look with her. Kind of the last week of June.
And so, how much pressure do you feel, especially with seeing what happened with UHIP? Do you think that there were lessons learned from what happened with UHIP that you guys have sort of taken to heart?
You can't avoid it, right? And the one thing that's interesting, setting aside UHIP, is that there have been other failed DMV implementations across the U.S. So it's not, there are so many lessons to get. You don't actually have to just go there. You can go to a similar type of implementation. So I was on the phone with a couple of my teammates with the team from Colorado who just rolled out one and are in the second phase of it right now 2 nights ago. There are lessons to be learned. When I think about us relative to the one you mentioned, I think about employee engagement. This is very simple. This is just replacing the system. So we're not redesigning the world, as I mentioned earlier in our discussion. That's a huge difference. Right? You're going to walk into the DMV if you come, and it'll be you're not going to a different place. You're not being handled by different people. We've added bodies, not subtracted bodies. I mean, there's some very fundamental differences. And then we're actually trying to remember this isn't so much a life and death experience at the DMV. I mean, I know there's urgency to what people need, but this isn't about whether you eat or not. And so we have the ability to put a reservation system in place to say, don't come in for 9 days unless you have a reservation. And unless you have an emergency. If you have an emergency, we'll triage it with you. But the fact of the matter is, we can hold back demand, and we can say, just wait, because we know every day how many people need to be served based on prior experience, and we know every day you don't take them, that number builds. So we want to get as many people in now. As I said, eating at demand in your first comments, that is very thoughtful. We're getting through that demand, and that means it'll be a lighter pull on us on the 5th of July. But also we have a reservation system holding back demand if it works. And I'm hoping Rhode Islanders will hear it and not come in. In fact, I'm hoping it's fabulous weather. So that they, on the 4th of July,
be to the beach.
They go to the beach because there's lots of them here.
You're not going to be on the beach on July 4th.
No, I'll be sitting here under green lights.
No barbecue on the 4th. what do you have to say to folks if they're watching here? Maybe they've gone to a DMV recently and the lines have been long. You know the naysayers out there. You know the critics out there. You hear it. You hear folks saying, "Oh God, this is going to be the whatever." What would you want to say to them? Give it time. Wait. See how it goes.
Yeah.
How would you like to say to them?
So I think that the big lesson for me, having never been involved with a state agency until coming here a year and a half ago, the 175 people in the DMVs, first of all, they're extraordinarily committed. They get it. They want this. I was in Middletown doing a little town hall with the people there, and someone said, "You can't do this soon enough for us." So, and we've heard, Bud's heard that. Bud Craddock, who runs the DMVs, hears it every day. So they work incredibly hard. Their speeds are fast. The pressure's hard. So I would just say, be patient with them, because these are Rhode Islanders. These are neighbors, and they want to do the best they can for us. So rather than just say, "Geez, it's another cruddy exercise of state government," it's actually quite the opposite. We did a survey. We talked about it publicly a little bit, and it was such an eye opener, which is that I think we have 93% satisfaction with our people. I mean, that's huge. You don't get that at some of the best retail chains, right?
Yeah.
So people, I think
people like the people.
They do, and they're very courteous, and they work really hard. As I said, it's 10 minutes with them. It's 2 hours in a line on a bad day, or 3 hours on a bad day. That's not their fault. So I would just say, be patient with them. Use the online services, because they're really great. And by the way, they're now free in terms of transaction fees, which we've waived those going forward and indefinitely for most of them. And so use those if you can, and be patient with us. We're going to make it right, and it's for Rhode Island. It's not. This isn't because someone else just wants to put a technology solution in place. I think it's all the right reasons.
And maybe last question, as we're standing here and they're wrestling through the budget up at the State House right now, think the DMV is going to get the resources that it needs from the state?
On one hand, I can't comment, but I can say this. I know the Speaker, I know the Senate President, I know the Governor understand what we're about, and they know how important this is. They backed us, courageously, I think, because these aren't popular, these technology implementations. So I'm cautiously optimistic that we'll be in an okay place for resources going forward.
Well, all eyes are on the budget. See, I hear they're still wrangling.
I'm sure they are, because it'll be a late night tonight.
It will be a late night, but Rob Paul, I appreciate your coming in. This is very important to bring to folks. Again, we'll have more information following, again, the online services, and you sent the release out last week. You'll be sending more communications to the press in the coming weeks as well.
You got that right.
Paul Grimaldi will be hearing from him as well. But Rob Paul, I appreciate your coming in today.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Rob Paul with the state of Rhode Island, talking about the highly anticipated rollout of the new DMV services. They sent a release out last week, again, kind of telling Rhode Islanders what to expect, other resources available. Now, he did just speak to some increased volume times at DMVs as folks understand that this is going to be taking place in short order. So we appreciate they're coming in to talk about what exactly this means, why it was necessary. Again, code from the Reagan administration with COBOL is actually what they're using now. So we'll be keeping a close eye on this. I know folks will as well. Again, July 5th, the anticipated launch date for the new DMV services here in Rhode Island.